Hello, welcome to Azure Cosmos DB Conf 2025. My name is Iria Osara. I'm a program manager here at Microsoft.
Hi, I'm Sudhanshu Khera. I'm a senior product manager at Microsoft, and today we'll be talking about the best practices in enhancing security in Cosmos DB. At Microsoft, security is our mission and a way of life. And what you see here is a framework called Secure Future Initiative that we follow for security. What's the focus of this framework? We try to build everything which is secure by design, which means that when we are building something, we are focusing on the product or the service and making sure that the design is secure. Follow along, we also ensure that all the settings that are available are secure in a way that you don't have to make changes when you receive a product. Everything is there and nothing is optional. And lastly, as you're using it, we are continuously monitoring and determining if there's any threats and making it secure through the process. This Secure Future initiative is based on six pillars. From protecting different components at different stages in a product's life, we're also monitoring defects or, sorry, monitoring threats, and at the same time making sure that there is any remediation that is required is also done in a timely manner. In the interest of time, I'll pick a couple of these today and talk about them in more detail. I'll start with protect identities and secrets. So the question comes is like, why is this important? Why do we want to protect identities and secrets? So identity is the primary attack vector. And Iria, I have a question for you. Do you want to take a guess as to what percentage of attacks start at the identity level?
I'd say about 75%.
Close enough. It's actually 80%. And
Oh,
so 80% of the attacks start at the identity level, and it's a very easy entry point for our cyber criminals. So, what we try to do is we are restricting any unauthorized access by making this as a least privilege principle where you only get what you need, nothing more. So we follow those security standards. We are not only looking at authentication, but we're also focusing on authorization, which means you are getting only your entitlements that are assigned to you that you need to do your daily job and nothing extra because you changed job in the past. So that's a very much something that we focus on. And at the same time, once you follow these different aspects, you're being compliant as well. Moving on, we've talked about the why it's important, and then how do we go about it? How do we protect the secrets? So one of the ways which we are following here is adopting managed credentials, and what it means is basically using Microsoft Entra ID managed identities to authenticate. So we have two sets of or two categories of identities, I would say. One is system assigned and one is user assigned. And these are handled at the service principal level. So how it helps is it basically helps you enhancing security because you're not managing it yourself. It's being managed by Entra. And it gives you continuous protection because there's no human involved there. So it's much easier that in that regards. And if you think about it from a Cosmos DB point of view, how do you uh, translate within Cosmos DB is taking one step further, like completely removing key-based authentication. And with that, you will be able to rely totally on that Entra managed keys. So you don't have to, it eliminates that risk entirely. There are multiple ways of doing that. And on the left hand side of the screen, you can see how you can disable key based authentication using Azure CLI. On the right hand side, it shows how you can use the bicep template and disable it. There is another popular way of doing this using ARM templates, and I can quickly show that in a quick demo on the next slide. So here, what you see is my Cosmos DB account. If I go to export template, the first option that is selected by default is the ARM template. The flag or the setting we are interested in is called disable local auth, and you can see the value is set to false in my case. And what I want to do is make sure that the value is changed to true, which means local authentication will be disabled and I'll be relying on managed identity here. So for the sake of this demo, I'm using the existing template. I'm not downloading or using a custom template. Once I save here, my changes will go in. Right now, it's doing the validation. And on the next screen, once I click on create, it will basically attempt to deploy this template. So as you can see, the request has been submitted. And in a moment, you will see the deployment will succeed. So that is a quick way, one of the ways you can easily go through this process of disabling key-based authentication.
What if there is like a restriction and a user is not able to disable, like, their key-based access? What happens then?
Perfect question. That actually is a segue to my next slide. So this is precisely what you were asking, Iria. This is where if you are unable to disable key-based authentication and you have to use the keys in your situation, then you can automatically rotate the keys. So in my example, I'm basically talking about Key Vault, which can be the central store, which will take care of all of that for you. And again, the benefits will come handy when it comes to not having a human remember when to rotate the keys or when to change that token. So this will be all centrally managed. And certainly you will make sure, or it will make sure that there is no unauthorized access, no manual key rotation, no human operator error involved. So in the diagram that you can see here, it calls out that once an expiration event happens or it's close to an expiration, which is like 7 days before and after, it will initiate the generation of a new key. It will automatically update the secret within Cosmos DB and then save it in the key vault. So it's a continuous cycle and you don't have to ever think about it. You've done it, set it up once, and you're set for life, the literal
Okay.
life of the Cosmos DB.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Okay, so Iria, why don't you talk about how we can protect network? I've talked about one pillar. Why don't you share your thoughts on the second, another one?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Sudhanshu. So we reviewed the security pillars, and one of them is protecting your network. As we know, it's very crucial for your Cosmos DB resources or whatever other past resource that you have to ensure a secure network. And there are a couple of pain points, right? For one, you're looking at how do I have consistent inbound or outbound access across all those resources. Or if you have different PaaS resources like a Cosmos DB account, storage, and you want to ensure they're able to communicate with one another, ensuring like a communication between them. Sometimes there are limitations with that. Or just having the audit logs. You want logs for your compliance and all of that. These are some of the limitations that you probably would have when you try to protect your network. And also looking at a lot of resources. You probably have 20, 30 plus resources, and that probably be hard to manage at scale because you're trying to ensure the rules and all of that are in place. But the good thing about it is we'll be looking at more ways we can ensure you can be able to protect your network for your Azure Cosmos DB resource. Now, as mentioned, there are a couple of ways you can protect the network. And first, we're looking at network security perimeter, which is a way that allows you to protect your Cosmos DB accounts and all the past resource that you have, and be able to communicate with one another within like an explicit trusted boundary. Now, you might be familiar with service endpoint, which provides a secure and direct communication between your Cosmos DB and other Azure services, or as we have here, private link, which is you have allows you have your Cosmos DB account communicate over a private endpoint in your network. Like we're looking at all of this, and I think it's probably good we take a deep dive into the network security perimeter and see how you can use that to protect your network. Now, as you can see, like mentioned earlier, right? It helps you build like a logical network isolation, so you don't have to do like the private endpoint, all of that, but you're able to ensure that your past resources are able to communicate. So you have your Cosmos DB, like you mentioned, Sudhanshu talked about protecting identity and secrets. You have your key vault and you have all of that. You can put that within a logical boundary and be able to ensure communications, secure communications between any other service. So now with network security perimeter, we have three ways, right? Three main areas. You're able to secure your inbound access. That way you can allow or deny inbound access from the internet or from public places that you define, or you're able to limit access from some certain IP address or subscriptions. And then there's a way you protect the outbound access, like I mentioned, through the inbound, right? And you're able to limit based on like a fully qualified domain name destination. So you're able to say, these are the public domains that I would want my to communicate with this perimeter. And also the main point or one of the other ways is if you have a lot of past services and you want to ensure service to service communication, you're able to do that using network security perimeter. And these are not just it, right? I think one main thing about it is data exfiltration. You're able to do this too with network security perimeter because it's independent of whatever network settings you have on the resource itself. With if you have any set up firewalls or whatever within your resource, you can have an added level with network security perimeter when you put all of these resources within that perimeter. And then also as you're able to connect that and do diagnostic settings, like we mentioned, for like audit and compliance. So there is something here. I'll share with you the components of network security perimeter. We're just looking at it at a high level. Now we know the network security perimeter is the top level resource where you define that logical boundary to ensure security for your past resources like your Cosmos DB account. And then you're able to set up a profile, which is similar to like a network security group in this case. You're able to set that up, that collection of rules and access for those resources. Then you have the access rules with the inbound access that we talked about earlier on. And then it comes down to like your diagnostic settings, right? You're able to, once you have that hub set up, you're able to enable like the logs and define a destination for the logs and which you can review for your audits or just for compliance. Sudhanshu, I think I'm curious though, like I guess I've been talking about network security perimeter, and I'm thinking, besides aside of network security perimeter, how else do you think people could like protect their database or their resources?
That's a reverse Uno on me now.
Yeah,
Um, I guess a firewall could be a potential option there.
I think yeah. That's it. True. You're right. But then think about it, right? If you have like 30 resources, you have to create one firewall rule per each resource, right? But then here, if you're using a network security perimeter, you had just one access rule to secure all of that resources. So this is like we talked about the pain points earlier, and this it's one where you can manage all of your resources at scale, no matter how large it is. So it is true, yes, you can do that. And within that, you can like create profiles and have different profiles with different access rules, like we looked at the components. And I think to me, like really, this is really, really cool. I it was really nice. We even just getting ready for this and looking through it and realizing this is something really cool and very vital if you are looking to really protect your resources to actually take a look at network security perimeter, and it really helps a lot. And
So, in summary, you're saying that network security perimeter is that one ring that rules them all.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I think so too. I think so. I agree with you on that. If you put it that way. Yes. So I think we've talked about the benefits of using, you know, network security perimeter and all of that, and the one, one ring or one rule. What do you say again, Sudhanshu?
One ring that rules them all.
Exactly. One. So I'll still Sudhanshu's quote on that. But then there are a couple of use cases, right? That like you could want. But one that I really want to talk about is access of data. Like just trying to ensure like your data is secure, like with the rules. And with that, you had like your Cosmos DB, you have a SQL, you have maybe Key Vault and a couple of other resources within a perimeter. And then you're able to say, I have like 10, 20 subscriptions. I want to be able to allow access, inbound access from certain subscriptions, and some other subscriptions I want to disallow or deny access. And this is something that you can do. That you can do with a network security perimeter, which I think is really nice. I will just go quickly and I will show you a quick demo of how a network security perimeter works. I probably will not walk you through the whole setup, but I will show you how when you have a perimeter already set. Oh, sorry. When you have a perimeter already set up, pause. Yeah, so this is a quick demo. We already have a network security perimeter created, but you can see it had a default profile, but there were no resources attached. You can create, like I mentioned, multiple profiles within your network security perimeter, created a perimeter, added a resource to this perimeter, and then you can specify some inbound access based on IPs or subscriptions, like I would do here with some subscriptions, and also an outbound access, right? You specify an external domain that you want to access over the internet. If only I could spell the Conoso, but I decided, you know what, it's probably easier to spell Microsoft here, so I went with that. And so if we go on from here, we have be able to add a profile onto your perimeter, which is really simple, and process is seamless. And with that, you can go back once this has been successful. As you can see the resources, the subscriptions that have been added, or even just looking at the profiles and the resource and all the access. And you can add more resources. You can enable diagnostic settings. And yeah, with that comes the end of this demo. Thanks a lot for joining us. Remember to go to aka.ms, try Cosmos, to try out Cosmos DB. If you're looking to learn more about network security perimeter, we have the link here, aka.ms/ network security perimeter. Thanks a lot for joining us today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference and hopefully see you again at next conference 2026. So that's it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.